Okay, first of all, my name is Teddy. Thank you so much for your time. I have two questions. They pretty much cut across, but they're quite pivotal in my opinion. And the first question is one of the things, or two things that I've really picked from our discussion today that are quite dominant is to do with mindset and value. And especially when you're building relationships, be it at work, be it with mentors, be it with young people, be it even in romantic relationships. A question that I have for the two of you is, which are the principles that you guys have heeded to when you've taken the time to work on your mindset and to work on the value that you bring to the table? And the second question is regards to boundaries. And this is usually a hot topic, especially as young people. And it's because boundaries really define what's good and what's not good. And when it comes to managing different relationships, different situations, different circumstances, which are the boundaries that you've put in place before your dating years, in your dating years, after your dating years, and even into other relationships such as work and family that have really helped you get to where you are at? Thanks.
Wow, Solo, you're a fast thinker than me.
Bro, you keep throwing me under the bus.
No.
Okay, I don't think I've ever thought about it that way in terms of principles. I mean, I think it all boils down to your formative years. Who raised you? What did you observe when you were growing up? Those create the basement or foundation for what will later become your value system. And your values will determine what you give priority to in terms of the principles you're asking about. For me, maybe it's different for Pius, but for me it's not as if I had a list, checklist. Number one, today done, today, then, before I make a decision, I look at the checklist again. For me, it tends to work a bit more automatedly based on what's already inside me from a life outlook, life ideology, life theology. When you're a person of faith, there are certain things that you just know automatically, like it's bad to lie. You don't cheat your fellow man. You don't con someone. You look to do good for your fellow man. Love your neighbor as yourself. These are overriding principles that then inform your decisions about other things, right? And whether or not we like it, I believe that's how it works for all of us. Therefore, the importance of paying attention to who you're listening to, who you're hanging around, because all those things are being absorbed by your soul. You start to pick up habits. I don't know if you've experienced this. I've experienced this a number of times in my life where I realize after a while of hanging out with a particular person, I start to say certain words like them. Even my gestures start to mimic theirs. And I'm like, where did that come from? It wasn't a conscious thing. It just happened automatically. And a lot of life is like that. Your outlook about life. Are you a negative slanted person, a positive slanted person? If you can map that, then look at who you're hanging around with. You'll start to see complete parallels. You know what I mean? What you're spending your time listening to, watching, reading, doing, all these things matter. And so they become the overriding, unspoken, automated principles that guide your decisions. So rather than look at it from a sort of pilot, going through a checklist of this is okay, the flaps are working, then we take off, just go back a few steps and keep it very simple. The 6 people you hang around with most, do you like what their lives look like now? If they're your age mates, maybe you want to say, based on what they're doing now, do you think they're going to end up in the sort of situation you would like to be? I mean, it's very simple. You can say yes, no, very quickly. And then you adjust, take action now. You have to be completely ruthless about that. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who reaps the fruit of that situation. And those friends will not be there to bail you out. And I know this is a particularly difficult thing for younger people to do because you're so invested in your emotional and social relationships, right? Because it informs a lot of your identity, because a lot of it has to do with who is willing to accept you. Yeah, that dynamic changes as you get older. When you talk about self-actualization, well, there's a famous book. I'm not even sure I can say it out loud. The Art of Not Giving a. Right. That's what the book is about. At some point in your life, you stop worrying about being accepted. Other things become more important because you realize that ultimately they are what matter. And so what Pius and I are hoping to do with these sessions is to give you guys a leg up early. Things I wish someone told me when I was your age. I would be so far in life right now if I had the opportunity to sit in a room like this with guys who've gone ahead. And I'm not saying we have made it yet. All I'm saying is we have had a head start. We've made mistakes. We've had some successes. You can learn from both. So just do an audit of your life now. I do it all the time. Someone calls and asks if we can hang out. It's very easy for me to say, dude, I'm sorry, can't make it. Why? Because I don't like what that person is about. I don't like where I see their lives going. So it's easy for me to say no. Sometimes it's someone I really respect and honor. And the truth of the matter is those sorts of guys will rarely call you. You have to pursue them. So put your pride aside. There's no room for pride and dignity and out the window, because you know what you're after. If it's virtuous, if it's good, seek them out. Eventually they let you into their circles. Before you know it, you're in their homes on Sundays after lunch, after church for lunch. You're being invited to birthday parties. You invite them back. You're going to their families' funerals. You're going out for dinners together or lunch, or you're just hanging out at each other's homes. And that same dynamic kicks into play. I remember the first time I realized this, I had made my first million bobs at Goshen Acquisition. This is like almost 11 years ago. Man, I was on cloud 99, forget 9. It's the first million shillings I made myself. Wasn't given, wasn't helped by anyone. I transacted. It was actually more than $1 million. It was $1 million times X. But that feeling was priceless. I could bite a bullet. Yeah. And I thought now I've arrived, man. Like, you can't tell me jack. Like, who are you? You know, it was an internal attitude.
After selling the perfumes?
No. This was after selling a few block acres of land.
Similar feeling.
Yes. That feeling of I slapped the ticket on the counter. I don't need your permission, I'm going. Right? I was hanging out with a guy who was making on average 50 to 60 million shillings a day. A day. I was better dressed than the guy. My attitude was horrible. If you met us, you would think he worked for me. And I was like, oh my God, I need to change the people I'm hanging around with. Because I thought I'd made it because I was doing slightly better than the people I was hanging around with at that point. Now all of a sudden that had escalated and I was immediately humbled. And I was like, Let me figure this guy's level first before I start growing horns. If I'm going to have horns in the first place, at least have something to back it up. You know what I mean? What's the point of having horns and you're nothing? So do an audit. That's the best advice I can give you guys. Just do an audit, assess your life, determine where you want to be, find the people who are headed there or have already reached there, seek them out for advice, for friendship. They will pour into you. You'll be surprised a lot of times, because this was my assumption earlier on, that why would they give me time? I'm a nobody. I don't have anything to offer them. To my shock, these people tend to be holding a lot in, lessons they've learned, connections they have, and the moment they let you in and you ask, they overgive, and you're overwhelmed. So take the first step. That would be my advice, and that will sort out the issue of principles, because you will learn them by osmosis, because that's just how it works. Yeah. You had a second question about?
Yeah, the second question is to do with regards to boundaries.
Boundaries.
Setting the right boundaries for the different relationships we find
Different
ourselves
relationships, yes. I mean, it's very simple. The only one I'm typically concerned about are potentially romantic ones. As a guy, having made my share of mistakes, as far as that is concerned, you have to be very clear about your code of conduct with members of the opposite sex. As an adult male, number one, and then when you get married, it escalates even further. So you have to be, I'll give you an example. If I give someone a lift that is not my wife or my daughter, very rarely, I can count on my one hand how many times I have let them sit in the front seat. I prefer they sit in the back. Why? Because even if there's nothing going on or potential for anything happening, the appearance of something happening to someone else is very high, who don't know what the situation is. I could have picked a random stranger on the road, it's raining, offered them a lift to the bus stop. Then, I pass with someone who knows me and they see some random chick in the front seat. Now you just have a drama of who knows what proportions. So protocol, code of conduct, there is such a thing. How to interact with members of the opposite sex as an adult. If I have a meeting in the office, unless I'm wrong, guys, I mean, most of my female staff members are here. We never close the door. The door is always open. Simple stuff like that. Not just for my protection, but also for theirs. And even if it has nothing to do with us, the perception to someone else, it matters. Does that make sense? So rules of engagement, those are things we should probably do another conversation and go step by step, things we have learned, mistakes made, blah, blah, blah. But, I think for the ladies, the same thing. How you dress, unfortunately, affects guys, even if it's not your intention. We're visually motivated creatures. So there's a code of conduct and ethics and protocol about how to dress for certain occasions. And that sort of thing. And that could probably be better addressed by women. But yes, there is such a thing as how to engage with the members of the opposite sex. Same for friends. Boundaries. I don't allow my friends at my house past 9 p.m. Gotta bounce. It's bedtime. I need to be relaxing, spend time with my kids maybe, watch Netflix and chill with my wife, even if we are blacking out on the couch. It's I don't allow anyone besides our kids to use our bathroom in the master bedroom. Simple stuff. You'll be surprised what kind of messes happen because of that simple thing. Who is sleeping in which room? Or close to who? The moment I got circumcised at 10 years of age, my dad started to tell me, you know, culturally, you're not allowed to sleep under the same roof as your mom. You're now a man. It's shameful. And by the time I was 15, he was already building me my own house in Shags. I still sleep there today when I go to Shags. Same with my wife's home. We go to visit family in Tanzania. I have to find a hotel. I can't sleep. And there's lots of room too. But I'm not allowed to sleep there. I mean, there's rhyme and reason for all these things because of the way human beings just work psychologically, physiologically. So, and I think most of it is innate. We understand, even if no one has told you, you have a sense for these things, right? How you sit next to a woman that is not your sister or your mom. Even with your own mom, there's things you just can't do. You can't be walking around the house in your boxers and your mom is in the house. You can't do that with someone who's not your sister unless you're trying to make something happen. You know what I mean? And that topic is endless. But I think just follow common sense and you'll be good. But it starts with who you're surrounding yourself with. Yeah. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have.
Awesome.
Wow, Solo and I are so similar, so it's very difficult for me to speak after Solo.
Uh-huh.
I think for me, the only thing I can add on this question of mindset and values, when I was defining my success, I was kind of seeing a horizon, you know? The horizon, it's quite far, and I asked myself, what would I want to happen in the horizon? You know, that place where everything meets. And there was only one answer. I would love to go to heaven. If there's one thing that I don't want to miss, it's going to heaven. If there's one thing I hope none of us misses, it's going to heaven. Because then, if you miss going to heaven, to me, you have failed. No matter how successful you are in many other things, you failed. Let's not sugarcoat it, you know. So then, working backwards to the present from that horizon point, I started asking myself, what are those things that are closer and closer to the horizon until today? And the first one was God, my relationship with God. And for the 12 years that my wife and I were married, it was always clear. God comes before her. And God always came before me, to her. So there was no point of debate. If she said it's something to do with her and God, I submitted. If I said it had something to do with me and God, she submitted. Praise God, you know. Then after that is my spouse. My spouse comes after God. Not even my children don't come between.
Yeah, children are after.
Those ones, by the way, they are people's wives and husbands that I'm bringing up, you know. Those ones are going to be going very shortly. And my lifetime partner, your spouse is, after choosing God, your spouse is the most important choice you ever make in your life. And that's why you shouldn't get it wrong. Because if you get it wrong, then even your chances of getting to heaven, they get really limited.
You just reminded me of, just to keep that, hit that point home. I walked into a room once and I heard my daughter speaking very disrespectfully to her mom.
Yes.
And I asked her, why are you talking to my wife like that? And she looked at me a bit confused, like, your mom is my wife. She was my wife before you existed. I don't appreciate you talking to my wife like that. And I could see her brain
readjusting.
Yeah, she was like, hey, okay. So, duly noted. But you're absolutely right. And making that adjustment for us was easy because someone advised us. We took a parenting class and they told us that your wife comes first, your husband comes first, your children are secondary. You don't take time from each other to give to the kids. The kids are to prioritize after you guys. And they need to understand that from a very early age. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and you see that in practice. So, for me, the way I live my life, when I wake up in the morning, my waking time is 3. So I sleep early. So I enjoy the night. So 3 a.m. I'm up. That's my time with God. And then after that, you can now allocate that time to your spouse. Then after that is children. Then after that is relationships. And your colleagues, your career starts coming, finances, all those other things start coming. But you can see the first ones, they are really about shaping your character. So what that did for me, it gave me a lens through which I make decisions. I really love what Jesus did in the New Testament. He took all the do's and don'ts of the Old Testament and he brought it, just simplified it. It's a matter of love. Why are you aligned? Why is your love aligned? If your love is aligned with God, then you don't need to be told the do's and don'ts. If you truly love your wife, then you will make the decisions that are best for her. There's a time I was traveling. I was away for a period of time. I was staying in this hotel, and I would go for meetings in the morning. In the evening, I would come, pass by the reception on my way to my room. And there was this evening I had a problem in my room. I needed to be sorted out. I go to the reception. There was a lady there. She sorted me out. I went back to my room. After a few minutes, I get a call. I receive the call, and the person on the other side is delaying to talk. So I'm like, hello, okay, who is there? And then she speaks. And she's like, can I come?
Who is she?
The one at the reception.
What?
She's like, can I come? And I'm like, who are you?
Do we have popcorn?
And it was a moment of awkwardness because I did not know what to tell her. I was in a foreign land for some time and had this offering because it was very clear I was alone and bored and lonely to someone else. And I said, no, you can't come. And I put the phone down. And then when I came back home, I told my wife about the story. And I told her not about the story, not to know about the lady, but I told her what my revelation for that moment was. And my revelation was, I am not loyal to her. I'm not loyal to my wife. I'm loyal to God. Because if I was loyal to my wife, then I had room to do something that she would never, ever have known, and life would have continued. So I didn't make that decision because of my loyalty to her. I made that decision because of my loyalty to God, who was with me regardless of location. And we laughed about it, and we were so aligned about it. And there was not one day in our 12 years of marriage where either one of us felt insecure, as in, you're with who, or or you're going on travel. There was not one day, and God is my witness. But it's because we both understood our values, each other's values, that first of all, my loyalty is to who? Is to God. And that drives everything else. That drives how I do business. I remember there's a time I had just done a very big deal in the market with someone in the market. It was $1 billion shillings, and I was making 50 million shillings in 3 months. It was like free money. And this guy, like, hey, Pius, can I buy you lunch? Like, okay, let's have lunch. So we met, and as we were talking, I was like, that was really good business we've done, and I would like to see how we can do more business. And the guy was like, I'm so happy that you are, it's like something in him just woke up, as in, I'm so happy you've said this, but that particular deal, 20 million would have been yours and 30 million would have been for your company. And I'm like, hey, I did not mean that one. That was not the kind of business. Again, I had to be very clear of what the kind of business I can do and live with. And for me, again, I went to my wife and I told her, by the way, this is what happened. And I was telling her, right there when I was sitting, I was like, I was wondering, if I accept to such a proposal, how will I wake up tomorrow morning and pray? Number two, if 20 mics hit our bank account, which is our joint account, and my wife asked me, by the way, where did you get 20 million, Bob, or 30 million, Bob? And I tell her,
it was a donation.
She's too sharp for that. and I cannot explain it on the kind of business I did to make 20 million like that.
Yeah.
I suddenly realized she would have been so confused on who is this guy she married. And our marriage would have gotten lost in this maze, her trying to figure out who is this guy she married. So some of these things we do, we think we are doing it even for the family, but in the process we are actually even confusing our spouses. Where am I going with these stories? Because you asked about values and mindset. And mindset is not something that comes from here. Mindset must come from God. You get? God says, with me all things are possible. So when I'm faced with impossible situations, I also say, with God all things are possible. When I need to do a crazy deal, like some of the ones we've discussed today, I say, with God all things are possible. When I'm thrown into something that I know nothing about, I'm like, I've got the mind of Christ, and I can do all things with Christ who strengthens it. So we need to stop figuring out ourselves away from the one who created us. That's what I'm saying. There's this whole industry of how to that has emerged because we've departed from the factory settings. And I like using this example. You can't buy a microwave and when it gets home, you try to use it like a fridge, or vice versa. And that's what we try to do with ourselves. We have some very particular settings, and if we stick to those settings, then we are functional. And if we become functional, then we live in an amazing society where everything fits in, and we do not have to live by a lot of do's and don'ts, do's and don'ts, do's and don'ts. So on boundaries, same thing. It's the same mindset that guides me. I've been very clear about, preserving the space for my spouse. There's a space in my life that nobody just enters, and we as men must guard it very carefully. There's a place for God that even my wife cannot enter. There's a place for my wife that even no friend can, even platonic. For me, by the way, this is the thing. If you're my wife, you're my best friend. That one I don't even give you a choice.
Oh, the issue of can
know.
I have a best friend who is a lady that's not my wife? No,
absolutely.
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't. If you're my
Yeah.
wife, you are my best friend, and you don't even have a choice. Because I chose you and you chose me. So first of all, as we're entering into this marriage, please know you're my best friend, because it can get very lonely. And if you're not each other's best friend, then you create room for insecurities, because people will go and find those feelings somewhere else, and that will challenge a space that nobody else is supposed to enter. Now, same thing with children. Your children also have their space. Your colleagues also have their space and boundaries. You get? And the people who are your brothers, your sisters, spiritual brother, sister, also have their space. There is a place they can go into your life that nobody else can enter. So the thing is you've got to be conscious. I can't really give you do's and don'ts here. All I can say, refer to your factory settings, and they will tell you exactly how you need to behave.
That's awesome. So can I attempt to summarize that one just for you in terms of the principles? First is God. Second, your spouse. Third, your children. Fourth, your work. Fifth, your family and friends. Meditate on that one, because the issue of friends, boundaries, and extended family versus your work gets muddied up all the time. My parents and my siblings come after my work in terms of prioritizing time. Unless it's an emergency, my mom calls to ask for lunch and I'm supposed to be at work. Tell her, I'm sorry, Mom, can I call you after work? Why? Because the work is the resource God uses to provide for my children and my spouse. So
and it's your mission field.
Yes,
that's
it's my
the
purpose. I would not let even my mother, whom I love dearly, if there's any woman I love more than my wife, it would be my mom. Another area of confusion for men: who is more important, mom or wife? Someone asked me that. If your wife and mom had an issue, whose side would you take? I was like, is that even a question? My mom would lose every single time. But these are things we haven't been taught and helped to align. So just as a simple guide, God, if you believe in God,
spouse,
children, work, friends and family. Yeah. That will sort out a lot of messes in your life. Trust me. Even how you spend your money.
Yes. Totally.
It will sort out a lot of messes. And that's something I've experienced personally. Yeah.
And that's why your spouse is so key. You mess there, at least God, there are not many alternatives. But spouse, there are many alternatives and there are many counterfeits. So for me, that is like, after choosing God, you better spend all the years trying to find out who she is or who he is. Don't commit until you're not attracted by the body. You're not attracted by the beauty. I think there's a proverb that says that charm is deceiving and beauty is passing, but a woman who fears the Lord, she shall be praised. And that just tells you, or conversely also for the man, what should attract us to each other, especially at that level, is character, more than our outward beauty.
Difficult for men to listen to and
very
accept.
tough.
Yeah,
very tough.
But good stuff.